Thank you very much, Tessa. I appreciate it. It is really an honor for me to be here, and it's humbling. I am here because, really, of my friendship with Officer Phong Nguyen of the Clayton County Police Department. I'm Mark Winnie. He's Phong Nguyen. You figure we're cousins someplace back along the line. I got to know Phong through his job and through my job. I heard a moving account from him when he described to me how, as he and his partner and best friend responded to a burglar call, a fleeing suspect ran down his partner, throwing him up in the air. The suspect was driving a pickup truck. He landed, and while Phong and other police officers awaited the arrival of an air ambulance, Phong described to me in very moving fashion how he prayed with his friend's head, prayed, and I think wondered if he'd make it. That experience kind of emblemizes why we're here, to support those who interpose their personal safety between the rest of us and those who would do us harm. But I think Phong has told me, if I'm not mistaken, that you and Officer Mike Hooks are closer than brothers. And we're also here to celebrate brotherhood and sisterhood, to celebrate the diversity of our American culture, to celebrate law enforcement that is a reflection of the community that it serves. And those are some of the reasons that it's very humbling for me to be here with you. Before I go much further, before I turn it back to you, I wanted to say mabuhay. Anybody? Mabuhay? Okay. Shall we be? Ni hao. Apa kabar? If you don't recognize your language, it could actually be somebody else's language. Sat Shri Akal. Namaste. And I'm happy to learn more greetings before the night is done. Today we are celebrating the unique and vastly diverse cultures and contributions of the 30-plus Asian ethnic groups who make up the Asian Pacific American community in Georgia. And really, I actually wanted to give a greeting in all 30-plus languages. But I didn't want to turn this into a breakfast event. We are especially honoring the Asian Pacific American women in our lives, like Tessa, who contribute so much to the community, in business, in education, and in the home. You will meet amazing APA women at each of your tables. See the Smithsonian Asian Pacific American Center exhibition, I Want a Wide American Earth, and hear from fantastic speakers who will share with you stories of pioneer Asian Pacific American women in the South. Also, please remember that this is a fundraiser, and it is to benefit scholarship and community outreach and education programs for both the APA Historical Society, which you're closely aligned, and the Asian American Peace Officers of Georgia, APOG. And Fong, you are in the process of, in between, putting your life on the line, getting home to your family, the other things that you're in the process of getting your master's degree. You're very close. I think that it would be terrific if the money raised at this event tonight and in the future could someday fund a scholarship program for every Asian American police officer in Georgia. So buy those door prize tickets and make some donations for an excellent cause. Tricia, what's the latest that we can buy some door prize tickets? Oh, as late as you wish. Well, what kind of drawing is that going to be if we can buy them as late as we wish? I'm kidding. All right. So we can buy during dinner, right? Okay. I will be buying some during dinner. Tessa? I think we have to say that Jennifer's rendition of the American the Beautiful was absolutely gorgeous. Okay, great. He's getting ready for the next one. It is a wonderful reminder of the diversity and beauty of America that is so rich in so many languages and so many cultures. At this time, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce and welcome to the podium Honorary Chair Stephen Tai, Director General of the Taipei Economic and Culture Office of Atlanta. Ms. Ching Shaw, Chair of tonight's May Asian Pacific American Heritage Month celebration banquet. Mr. Fong, President of the Asian American Peace Officers Association of Georgia and Assistant Chief Parole Officer with the Georgia State Board of Pardons and Paroles. Also, Mr. Kulit Singh, Board Member of the Asian Pacific American Historical Society and President of the Sikh American Community of Georgia. Would you like to begin?
APAC President Louis Tan, APAHS Vice President Donald Wong, APAC and APAHS Executive Director Patricia Song, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It is an honor and pleasure to be here tonight to attend the second annual Asian American Peace Officers of Georgia and the Asian Pacific American Historical Society Heritage Month Celebration Dinner. My colleagues and I of the Taipei Economic and Culture Office in Atlanta wish you all the best for a successful event honoring Asian Pacific American mothers and grandmothers. APAC and APAHS each offer contributions to the Asian American community in the Atlanta metro area. APAC outreach programs educate the community on important safety and self-defense issues and encourage dialogue and understanding among the various groups within the Asian American community. I commend APAC for promoting understanding and pride among APA officers from every Asian background and for encouraging youth to pursue law enforcement and public service careers. APAHS promotes inclusion, community dialogue, and education about Asian Pacific American history and traditions. Through its various events and programs, APAHS provides the invaluable Asian Americans with their rich heritage and with each other. My office can help those worthy organizations by encouraging Taiwanese Americans to participate in their activities. If we can be of service to any of you in the future, please do not hesitate to contact us. My colleagues and I joined APA and the APHS in honoring Asian Pacific American mothers and grandmothers tonight. Asians hold the family a high esteem. The mother plays a pivotal role in an Asian family and is therefore a revered, very important figure. Grandmothers are honored for their patience and wisdom. Tonight's event is the second of what I am sure will be many enjoyable annual celebrations in the years to come. I'm confident that the APA and the APHS will continue their impressive accomplishments far into the future. I wish you all good health and prosperity, and thank you for having me tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I know everyone's hungry, but the food is worth the wait. It's excellent. So it will be served shortly. My name is Qing. On behalf of the Planning Committee, we welcome you to the second annual Asian Pacific American Heritage Month celebration. This year, we're celebrating APA Women. The Asian American Peace Officer of Georgia has a special gift for all the women in the audience in appreciation of mothers, grandmothers, aunts, and sisters for all that you do every day. Officers and members of our planning committee will be bringing a gift to you at your table. Now, at this time, the Asian Pacific American Historical Society would also like to present beloved 100-year-old Renette resident, mother, then my grandmother, Liu Shixia, and Mother's Day Appreciation Award presented by Alfred Yin. So, Mr. Alfred Yin, would you like to do the honor, please? Let me tell you a little about my grandmother. She's right there in the front. My grandmother was born in Shandong, China. When she was little, due to feudalism society, she had her feet down. I remember when I was younger, I asked her why her feet were so small and weird looking. Her last 2 toes were bent under the other 3 toes. She told me she could hear her bones crack, and she had to sit on them forced to walk. Sorry for that. Good thing you guys haven't started eating yet. But and that was very weird to me. She told me that that's all the woman did to show the symbolism of beauty. I was like, excuse me, why would anyone in their right mind do that? I would never do it. She says because I didn't live in her era. My grandmother, she might look small, but she's one strong woman. She does all the hard work by herself without, she doesn't want us to touch anything. She can do it all by herself. She's 100 years old. That's a long years. She's been through a lot. From no TV, from black and white TV, from black TV to 3D TV. I just want to say how much I appreciate having her in my life. We have 4 generations living together from the oldest 100 years to the youngest at 2 years old. We are very blessed. Thank you. to introduce you all to Louis Tang, President of Asian American Peace Officer of Jamaica. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming together. So, it's very short. On behalf of the ACON board, we want to especially take this opportunity to recognize 88 women, immigrant mothers and grandmothers, the contribution and sacrifice that we have already given this form of appreciation on their part. Us to Happy Mother's Day.
Good evening, everyone. Once someone introduces food from the podium, it's very hard for the speaker to speak and maintain the proper rhythm of the program. So I won't take much time, but on behalf of Asian Pacific American Society, we want to recognize our proud sponsor and our community partners, and also the White House Initiative on Asian American Pacific Islanders on their wonderful work, especially here in the Southeast region, to engage diverse APA community. So our proud partners and community for these programs are, I'll read their names, and one of the representatives from each of these community can stand on the table, wherever they are. Asian American Peace Officer of Georgia. Our proud partners are Asian Pacific American Historical Society, White House Initiative on Asian American and Pacific Islanders. National Archives from DC. National Archives of America. U.S. Federal Air Marshal Service of America. Story Fort. Mayor of North Ross, Mayor Bucky Johnson. Mayor of Morrow, Mayor Burke. Sikh American Community of Georgia. Thai Association of Georgia, Asian Pacific Americans in South Research Institute, Asian American Resource Center, Center for Pan-Asian Community Service, Asian American Society, Cambodian American Society of Georgia, Indian American Community, Nucleus Asian Business Resource Group, Coca-Cola Asian Business Resource Group, Vietnamese Community of Georgia, National Federation of Filipino American Association, U.S.-China People Friendship Association, Federal Union Pacific American Council. At this time, we are pleased to welcome Chris Harley, Senior Advisor from White House for Asian American Islanders.
Hi, everybody. Okay, I'll try to talk quicker. I just wanted to thank Tricia Sung and the planning committee for having me here. And actually, if I could have, again, the representatives from ACOG, the Asian American Peace Officers of Georgia, the Asian Pacific American Historical Society, the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office, and the Asian Pacific American Librarian Association come up. I have a proclamation from the President of the United States in honor of Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month that I would like to give to each of you. What it says is that during Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, we celebrate the accomplishments of our community leaders. We reflect on the many ways that they have enriched our nation. Like America itself, the Asian American and Pacific Islander community draws strength from the diversity of its many distinct cultures, with each with vibrant histories and unique perspectives to bring to our national life. And so I wanted to give each of you this proclamation and thank you for your leadership in Georgia and on behalf of the many diverse communities in this state. So thank you so much. I'm really so pleased to be here on behalf of the White House Initiative on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. I'm a senior policy advisor, and one of my honors is to lead our regional interagency working group that's based here in Region 4, headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. So some of you were present at the event that we held in March, the Asian American and Pacific Islander Community. And so it was very lovely for Tricia to invite me back on behalf of the initiative. And one of the things that I keep thinking about as I was preparing for this event is the statement that the President made during the State of the Union. And he stated, "We know our economy is stronger when our wives, mothers, and daughters can live their lives free from discrimination in the workplace and free from the fear of violence." And that is why the initiative has been so committed to ensuring that the Asian American and Pacific Islander community here in the South has the resources and support that it needs to be successful, thriving, and an enduring community. So I did want to make sure that each of you know that we have committed to be present here through our Region 4 Interagency Working Group. We are committed to building relationships and creating the opportunities to engage, to learn from, and to learn technical skills with the Asian American community so that we can increase your capacity and leadership and abilities to meet the needs of this diverse population in this state. We've already partnered with local leaders. As I said earlier, in March, we held our Asian American Community Forum. We also worked with the Center for Pan-Asian Community Services to conduct an enrollment summit specifically for the Asian American community in regards to the program where we were able to help over 80 families receive assistance in enrolling in health insurance. And then just today, we came from a citizenship training with the Burmese and Bhutanese community in Clarkston. And all of this is really just a start. It's just a start, and I promise that you will continue to hear from us throughout this year as we continue to respond to the recommendations and needs that we learned in March and make sure that the resources for small businesses that are limited English proficient parents are able to assist their And I don't know if any of you watched the opening ceremony. It was being live streamed, but Judge Sri Srinivasan, who is actually one of the first Indian American federal judges, noted that when he Googled this theme, I Am Beyond, the first thing that popped up was I Am Beyonce. So I was thinking that one of the things that I've noticed since I've been engaging with the Asian American community leaders in Georgia is that so many of the movers and shakers here are women, our mothers, our grandmothers, our sisters who are leading many of these organizations. And so I thought it would be fitting to close with the words of Beyonce, that women run the world. So thank you.
On behalf of Asian American Historical Society, we would like to present the Community Championship Award to Ms. Hart.
Good evening. On behalf of the Asian Pacific American Historical Society, I am pleased to present this Community Championship Award to the National Archives for their partnership since 2010 with the Asian Pacific American Community of the South to hold an annual May APA Heritage Month Symposium at the National Archives in Atlanta, welcoming the community to share their family and community stories of their contributions to the U.S. and to learn about APA-related holdings in the nation's archives.
I want to introduce Maria Barnwell. She's the Director of Education from Washington, D.C., and it's truly been a pleasure to work with your staff.
Thank you, Tricia. It's been wonderful working with you and the Asian Pacific American Historical Society. The National Archives here in the community, and it has been wonderful and very supportive in hosting many of the events at the facility itself. I want you to know that we are still very committed to our support and to working with the community. I basically see here my staff, and that's been a great opportunity to work with Tricia. Thank you for sharing. But anyway, I just want to thank you. I feel very honored being a part of today and the program this evening. And once again, on behalf of the National Archives, thank you very, very much. And I look forward to the next year.
At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce the first of our two keynote speakers. The APA keynote speaker is Ms. Aparna Bhattacharya, Executive Director of WACHA, a nonprofit social service agency which addresses domestic violence and sexual violence in the South Asian community. She has deep roots in Atlanta, with her family owning the first South Asian restaurant in Georgia in what is now known as Brookhaven. Very much loved in diverse communities, she and Raksha have helped to support the founding of many organizations, including currently serving as fiscal agent for the Asian American Peace Officers of Georgia. Aparna has been recognized as a White House Champion of Change, and we are honored with her presence today. Please join me in welcoming Aparna to the podium.
So I have a PowerPoint. I don't know if it's going to come up or not. Thank you all for having me here. It's such an honor to work with ACON and Historical Society. It's been a very busy day, but it's been a lot of fun. And you know, I brought a box of Kleenex because anytime we talk about mothers, grandmothers, I tend to tear up, and I already had a moment this morning. So just going to warn you that if I start crying, it might get more emotional. So hopefully we'll start with our PowerPoint. And what we're doing is celebrating mothers and grandmothers. Can we go to the first slide? Excellent. I can't see, so I'm going to come down and have a conversation. But that's a picture of 3 generations of my family. It's my mother, my grandmother, my older sister, and me. Can you guess which one's me? Anyone? So little one. I said older sister, I tried to y'all, I did. It's very difficult to talk about mothers and grandmothers because my mother, my grandmother, are along with me, and actually my sister passed away 2 years ago, so hence this is why I'm wondering why I might be crying. And I kind of said to her, "Are you sure you want me to do this? Because I'll probably be a basket full of tears." But these are the amazing women in my life. Now, of course, it was never perfect. There were definitely challenges. My mother probably gave her mother some challenges. My sister and I gave my mom some challenges. So it was never an easy journey, but they're very important women in our lives and continue to influence us. Let's go to the next slide. So I start off with a picture of my mom and my grandmother. And there's a picture of all my great aunts and my mom and my aunts. And the reason, what I find so beautiful about the Asian American culture is that we do not have one mother. We have many mothers. And my mom would always tell the story because I was a very affectionate child who always wanted hugs all the time. I loved giving lots of attention. In fact, if I didn't think I was giving enough attention, I'd go on strike. And I asked my mom, I had a conversation with her, and I said, "You know, Mom, why are you so affectionate?" She goes, "Really, I never was affectionate. In fact, my mom wasn't affectionate. She was actually very strict. She was the disciplinarian. She said it was all my other aunts who were very loving and affectionate to me. And that's where I learned a lot about forgiveness, compassion, and love was from my aunts. And she grew up in a household, basically that was an extended family. So she grew up with my mothers. And then luckily enough, I got to meet all of the 3 aunts. How amazing they were. So she always grew up she grew up in a household where there was 5 brothers living in one house and all their wives. So the discipline was always my grandmother. But then you had the ones that fed, that were coddling, that took you out on trips. So she was really lucky to have more than one mother. And it was such a blessing that we hear those stories. So go to the next slide. There's a picture of my maternal grandmother and my grandfather living. And next to that is, my maternal grandmother I never met. She died when my father was 6 years of age. So she really wasn't very much in my father's life. So with my maternal grandmother's brother, we would call that an uncle, but we call a specific uncle called Mama. When my mama was getting married, he told his wife Denise that I have 3 kids. You have to be okay with raising 3 kids. My great aunt said, "Okay, fine, he has 3 kids." Well, she found out that those 3 kids included my father, my aunt, and my uncle, who had passed away. So there was this dedication on my uncle's part to make sure that he looked out for his nephews and nieces. On the side is the grandmother that helped raise my dad. Even though she had no relation to my dad, she raised him as his own. And my father was always so grateful for that to this day, well, not to this day, but as we were growing up, he always made sure he sent money in that house. That's right behind her, the extensions picture. But you know, it was hard to leave her daughter behind, but it was also a struggle to come here. And that picture you saw in the very beginning was a picture after I was born when my grandmother first came to visit with my sister to the United States and kind of get to know, I guess, new baby in the family. Next slide. The next picture are my aunts. One is my maternal aunt, and the other one is my maternal aunt. I love you who are still alive. So whenever I feel sad, I look for love and support. So my mother, this is when we get emotional, my mother died in 2002. You'll see a slide of this woman later, but my mom's best friend, who had known her since she was 8 years of age, came to the United States, and we had kind of been planning a wedding before my mom had gotten sick, but we just put everything on hold because it was too hard emotionally. And then my mom died, and I was like, well, I can't do any of this. I can't think about a wedding. And my mom's best friend decided to come from India and have a few words with me. She said, we are here from this month to this month. Your mom really wanted you to get married. It's really important to her. And so you're going to get married in this time frame. Okay, she was giving me like 3 months notice. And the United States, well, in India, you can get married in a month or so. And the U.S. is usually like 6 months to a year. I'm a very stubborn young woman. I don't know how Sam convinced me, but somehow within 2 to 3 months, I could get married. And she somehow did. I couldn't argue with her. My mother had a hard time with me. I was like, you know, I must be a lot like my mom, but she really knew how to manipulate me and get me to do this without really throwing up much of a fight. What was beautiful, I remember crying to try and wanting to really get my maternal aunt to come. And she just could not imagine coming to the United States if she ever came here when her sister was here. And I remember crying with my cousin. Being really sad. So I was like, oh, this is supposed to make to oh my God. And my cousin talked to his mom, and the next thing you know, my maternal aunt and her husband came. And at some point when I was getting ready for the wedding, I could feel the presence of both my parents there between my mom's best friend and my aunt. We go to the next slide. I know I'm not going to The next picture is when we talk about my story with my mom. When I was little, you could not separate me from my mom. I clung to her. Anybody try to hold me in this evenings, I'd be like, no, let me go back to my mom. And the second picture of me and my mom in the restaurant. I spent a lot of time in that restaurant. And the restaurant was a place where my mother would shine. And I was telling folks that being one of the first set of immigrants, not first set, but early set of immigrants in the 60s and 70s, my parents were welcomers to many people who came. So there are folks who still have memories of my parents opening up their kitchen, opening up their homes, and welcoming them, and creating a space where they could feel loved and have support and feel a sense of community. And back then, you didn't have that many South Asians, much less Asian, in Atlanta, so it was an important place to be. And I think this is where I got my concern and love for wanting to help. So when I talk about doing the work in the community and working in Russia, I think all the bases come from my mom. Meaning of my mom's name, her name was Shumitra, which is good friend. She's definitely a good friend to many of the people in her lives. This is where I turned up last time. I remember when her friend had found out her husband was cheating on her, she ran hours and hours, helping her and providing her with support as she dealt with those difficult times. When he was sick, my mom was quick to or take care of their children. I remember one of her friends had a horrible car accident. It was soon after she had a baby, and that baby spent weeks with us all along in the hospital. So this is the kind of parents that cultural heritage, but that's what our mothers and grandmothers do for us on a daily basis. They pass on those beautiful characteristics and traits and language and memories of our culture that become an integral part of who we are. Next slide, please. The next slide, you can see that really tall woman with those 3 girls? That was my mom's best friend. That's the one who got me to get married when I was really stubborn. And the other one, I wanted to recognize the aunts. As common with many communities, immigrant communities, you have aunts that are the best friends, the community members, and we all consider them aunts. And because so many of my aunts were back home in India, I always felt like those friends were also my own family as well. So I want to honor those aunts who still continue to be there and call and check on me. In fact, when I went to Washington, D.C. last year, one of those aunts was there to represent my family. And it was quite emotional. I definitely wasn't first because it felt so powerful to know somebody cared that much to show up. President God. Next slide. Very good. I did this last slide as dedication to my sister. Who passed away 2 years ago. And it's because of her that I even have a clue what it's like to be a mother. Because she shared her 2 sons with me. And she'd always say, my boys have 2 mothers. They have me and they have my sister. And one of the things she told her friends was, I know as long as my sister's around, my sons will always be taken care of. And it's very important that I recognize her just because I don't know. It's really important that I just recognize her and remember her. Because it's because of her that I know what it's like to be a mom. She loved being a mom, and she was an amazing time. So proud of them today. She taught my lovely nephew is right here. She taught him so much and provided him so much love in everything that he did. Like, he speaks better about them than I do. He can probably dance better. He actually speaks Hindi because of my sister more than I do. And so I'm going to get the last slide. But as we recognize mothers, we think about the mothers who, of course, gave birth. We think about the mothers who are able to give birth but choose to be in children's lives by fostering children, adopting children, or mentoring folks who they need it. We think the mothers who are community leaders, who start movements and make change. We think the mothers who are aunts and sisters who are raising children that they did not plan on raising but still stepped in when the mother wasn't present. And I think the men who take on mothering roles, because a lot of times, like my father, he didn't have a mother, but he had an uncle that showed that same kind of love. And I think about my brother-in-law and my nephew right here, who continue to take that role for my youngest nephew. So thank you for all that mothers do, and thank you for this wonderful evening.
Thank you, Aparna, for sharing not only your stories and your insights with us, but for sharing your smile, yes, your tears, for opening your heart to us. We really appreciate that. And the Asian American Peace Officers of Georgia have a special presentation that they would like to make to you. If Genevieve Upshaw and Tammy Kamel from APOC would come up here. So you're going to have to try to get another connection.
makes Gurmeet more than I am a storyteller. I am honored to share my prayer with you tonight. As with everything in my life, my prayer also begins with a story. The story of my grandmother and of the only prayer that I know. I want to share a picture of my grandmother with you. I don't have a slide, but there's a picture of her from 5 years ago. And the prayer is Ek Omkar, the prayer of oneness. I would like to share a journal entry from my friend who's here tonight with me, who I visited to invite with me on my last trip to India 5 years ago. Shall we please smile? Of all the things there, she too awaited profoundly for the day when we would go to see my grandmother. So the journal entry goes, June 21st, 2009, meeting Gurmeet's grandmother. Watching a grandmother gaze at a beloved grandchild is like praying 1,000 beautiful prayers all at once. How much would I give to feel my grandparents' eyes upon me one more time? Gurmeet has been telling me about her grandmother, Bhagwant Kaur, whom she loves deeply for several months, yet I didn't know much about this grandmother before coming to India. Here's what I knew before this evening. It has been 5 years since they saw each other. When this grandmother embraces Gurmeet, the feeling is intense and soulful and full of love. This grandmother takes care of an elderly, crippled woman down the street. This grandmother's husband passed away 20 years ago, yet she remains fiercely independent. She's suffering from cancer. In short, I knew a few small but significant details. And then I saw how Bhagwant Kaur looked at her oldest granddaughter that night. I saw so much more. I saw the world in her eyes. I saw a woman relieved and grateful to see and hear and touch this child, this living proof that she has left her mark in the world far away in America. I saw her heart fulfilled in seeing her granddaughter's offspring, Angad, grow tall and strong and handsome. Watching her gaze, I stood in the presence of God. My friend captured that day in some magical photographs and presented me with a lifetime of memories. This has become one of my prayer books. She captured my goodbye embrace with my grandmother in this beautiful picture I want to share as well. Ek Onkar, it means that there is one divine being. The primary number one, that is Ek, is used for the divine. This is recognizable to people of all languages and cultures. The mathematical one is formless. It is beyond cause and effect. It is in all space and time, and yet transcends infinitely beyond as well, without any borders. And paradoxically, this one is within each and every being. Hence, there is no other but one. Ek Onkar, the prayer of oneness. This prayer is also a challenge. Our challenge being, how do we raise our consciousness and come to the realization that we are all equally human and have the same biological and spiritual ingredients. My prayer that starts with my grandmother ends with the thought of my daughters, your daughters, our daughters, the 200 schoolgirls in northern Nigeria that were abducted last month by the militant organization Boko Haram. It has been 1 full month and 2 days. We need to do more. We need to bring them back to their homes and schools where they belong. Ek Onkar, the prayer of oneness, is also the prayer of activism. How will you pray tonight, my friends? That is the challenge I offer you. Thank you.
Please join me in welcoming Professor John Rowe.
Pleasure to be here. I used to live in Georgia. In fact, I was born in Georgia. In fact, in relation to comments that were made, I met them and I shared them when I was 6 years old. So that probably has something to do with their being interested in history. But what I'm going to talk about is my slides that are on the screen. First, so what I'm going to be talking about are some reflections and memories about the pioneer Asian American community in the South who at that time were almost exclusively Chinese, immigrants to Asia. And so Chinese came to the South probably around 1870. The first women, Chinese women, didn't really come until about the 1920s. So there was a big gap there. That was what? In math, or at least 40-odd years. That's the last slide. I need to go to the beginning. You can look at that, but that's not the beginning. Okay, why would I pick a term like eating bitter after a dinner? That's a nice meal, right? Yang Fu in Chinese could be translated as eating bitter or eating bitterness. And it sort of connotes sort of stoicism, the attitude of, life is not all cherries. Life is tough. You have to deal with it. And these early Chinese immigrant women that I'm aware of from the 20s, the 1920s, certainly into the 1950s, lived a real life of hardship, extreme, difficult living circumstances. And in this slide, what you see is a photograph of the women at Angel Island Immigration Station, which is located in the San Francisco Bay. If you've ever been there, it's next to Alcatraz, which is, kind of ironic. Angel Island is actually a very beautiful island. There's lots of camping and hiking, but there's also a little cove where there's this Angel Island Immigration Station that was created in 1910. All Asian immigrants were detained there and interrogated to check their papers and for health considerations and quarantines. Since many of the Chinese women who came to America were give some more information. Thank you. This is a diagram of the United States. Is that the night? I guess maybe you went too far. Is that 1910 or? Yeah, that's okay, 1910. Those numbers show the number of Chinese women in the southern states. You can count on, fingers of one hand in those cases. Most of them were in Mississippi, or a handful, and there were a handful of Georgia. Actually, those numbers are probably an overcount because the census records were often in error. They sometimes confused the code in the term that was used in those days by African Americans was colored. They used C for Chinese, and they used C for colored and for Chinese, C2 and C4, and they just counted in many cases. Next slide shows what happened about 1940 records. The number of Chinese increased, but still not substantially. In the United States as a whole, and certainly until about 1940, the ratio of Chinese men to Chinese women was somewhere around 25 or 30 to 1. That was for the U.S. as a whole. If you looked at the American South, the ratio of Chinese men to women was closer to 100 to 1. So there were virtually no Chinese women at all in the American South until certainly the 1940s. Next slide. This will show you a little bit of that ratio that I was referring to, how greatly disproportionate it was in terms of male and female ratio. And this is not to say that all the Chinese men were bachelors. Functionally speaking, they were bachelors because their wives were not with them. Some of them, however, were married, but their wives and their children were left behind in China for a number of reasons that I'll get into. Okay, why were there so few Chinese women that I've already alluded to? There were a number of reasons. One was, you could say, Chinese cultural values. It was not looked upon favorably for the women to leave China to come to America. For one thing, as you know, China was a very paternalistic culture. And when a woman married into got married, she became part of the other family. And her role was to be totally subjugated to the whims of her mother-in-law. And so the wives staying behind in China would be there to help the mother-in-law with her family. Furthermore, there was some sort of belief that if the wives and their children were still in China, then the young men who went to the Americas to earn a living would return to China. It was sort of like, holding hostage in a way. So that would be one reason. Next, obviously, there were economic factors. Because the immigrants, the men who came to America, were not particularly well off financially. And so when they first came, it was a very uncertain future as to how well they would manage to earn a living. And it would cost money to bring wives over. And so it would be wiser for them to come along first, secure an occupation and a livelihood before sending for their wives and family. Other reasons next would be danger, that they knew that Chinese were restricted in America, that there were a lot of assaults, violence, even homicides against Chinese men in all parts of the United States, and they figured that the risk would be even greater for the women. Next would be there were American failures. The notion was that when the Chinese Student Act was passed in 1882, they made a distinction between laborers and merchants. Because the United States was facing economic depression in the 1870s, a lot of the blame was placed on cheap Chinese laborers. So they wanted to prevent more Chinese labor from coming in so that there would be more jobs for whites. However, if Chinese was a merchant, then he was not as big a threat. Chinese or certain other Asian countries that the wives had never met their husbands until the day of the marriage. And, all we today would think that that's rather, archaic and not palatable to our taste. The cultural views of that process were gone, and so no one really, was overly concerned about it. In fact, I remember asking my mother about this one time, and she said something like, matchmaker arranged match. They found someone from Gold Mountain, in other words, an immigrant man in the United States who had a job and could support a family, and so the elders raised his man. And she was taken to the market, the village market, and walk around while my to-be father was somewhere in the store, hidden behind a post observing and to see if he liked what he saw. Well, evidently he did, and the match was consummated, and so my mother came to America. She was probably one of the first Chinese women in Singapore. Next slide. These are just some pictures of us growing up in Jamaica. And my mother had 4 children. She worked in the laundry, assisted my father, worked from sunrise to sunset and until bedtime, and the next day repeated the same routine in addition to raising the children. Next slide. That's a picture later as we were, as I was about to start school in the back, so with my 2 sisters and brother. And as you can see in the subtitle, we've been knowing Chinese in the entire town. And that was not unusual for other cities in Georgia, other parts of the South, where there would be maybe 1 or 2 Chinese families. And I talked to people from other groups like Indian families in Louisiana and so forth. They also had that same kind of isolation. Next slide. This is a picture of my aunt in Atlanta. She had a husband who ran a laundry down where the Turner Stadium is, Joe's Laundry. And when her husband came to the United States, she already had 4 children in China. She did not come over, nor did her 4 children come over. Well, actually, 3 children. So her husband came over and actually came and lived in Macon for a couple of years with my father until he earned enough money to go to Atlanta and open his own laundry. It wasn't until about 1950 when the political situation improved and he was able, with the help of a legislator, file an appeal to be able to bring his family over some 13 years afterwards. So by then, his 3 sons were pretty well, at least one was pretty well grown, the other 2 were adolescents, and then so eventually that family was reunited. In my case, my mother was able to come over with my father together because my father masqueraded as a merchant. My uncle was less fortunate. Next slide. This is a picture of them in front of the original Joe's Laundry, which was on what was now called Capitol Avenue, and then there was torn down a little parking lot for the Atlanta Braves, so they kind of had to move around the corner to where it's presently located over in Georgia. So she did not work in the laundry so much, but she contributed a lot to the family in terms of raising the children. All the children were extremely successful. One an architect, one an engineer, one a pharmacist, and so forth. Which was typical of the sacrifices for education that these pioneering families, mothers as well as fathers, made it possible for their children to be successful professionally. Next slide. This is the daughter-in-law of that family, Ichi Chum. They had a laundry over Ponce de Leon Avenue, sort of not too far down the street from where the Fox Theater is located. So they immigrated, came in, and actually Southern California, but they immediately, because of they knew relatives back east, they eventually came through roundabout way to Atlanta and opened up the laundry there, raised by a program, and they worked in the laundry, they lived in the laundry, they had very little leisure time, they had no time to go visiting other Chinese, even though at that time in Atlanta there were probably in the 1940s, maybe about probably 40 or 50 Chinese people, almost all of them, running laundries, maybe one or two in restaurants. Next slide. This is a woman who is kind of a distant relative and her family at the Julie Young restaurant in Augusta, Georgia. They came actually across Canada and then into New York and then eventually came down to Augusta. And you can see in this picture, she is helping out in the family restaurant with her husband and older son. Next slide. This shows some of the patronage at the restaurant. She's serving food to a lot of the local politicians and a lot of the Army personnel at the nearby base. They were frequent patrons of their restaurant. So again, her life was one of difficulty. She didn't know much English. She just, basically helped support the family and raise the children. Next slide. This is a photograph that those of you who were at Totally Talk yesterday saw. This is a photograph of a grocery store in Augusta, Georgia, that my friend Ed Wong, I don't remember exactly what, he's probably the one standing left. So he's there with his family. The father came over to the grocery store, and then he had to leave to go to California to help a friend. He needed to go and mind the store while his friend went back to China for some business. And unfortunately, his friend went back to China and died, and so Edward's father had to stay in San Francisco for a while to help run that business. And before he could return, he too died. And so Edward's mother was left with 4 or 5 children in this grocery store, and she had to learn how to manage the entire operation by herself. And she rose to the occasion and managed that operation with some success. And while in Augusta, there was a small Chinese community, and some of the women, a few women, a handful of women did get together sometimes to play mahjong or to make Chinese food and so forth. Usually they had no time to socialize. Next. This is another photograph of them having a few moments of leisure in Augusta. Next slide. Okay, this is a photograph of Toy King in Fayetteville, North Carolina. They also immigrated from Guangdong. They ran a laundry in Fayetteville. And I was looking through some old archival newspapers, and there's a story about how one day didn't have any unusual title. And he set up this message to the brothers and so forth. He said, you need to look at this book that they live above the line just like we did. And above their line, they had 3 windows just like we did. So that was kind of interesting finding. Next slide. And all the sons were extremely successful. Some of them became military officers, some of them became professors of chemistry and so forth. And so they were written up in the paper because the mother also had to raise her sons pretty much on her own after her husband ran out of her. Next slide. This is one other story about some people in North Carolina who also ran out of it's kind of interesting how I found these people. I didn't know anything about these people a couple of months ago, but one of them was discovered by Chinese Library. I was very interested in it because they came from the library themselves. And so she was a professor of social work at the University of Pennsylvania. And so we started communicating, and she was telling me some of the stories about what her mother went through. It was extremely similar to what my mother went through, and how they solved these things were very similar. It was like a cultural genes and so on that led them to deal with life in pretty much the same way, learning to eat better and just sort of bear with it and try to survive. Next slide. And this is the same woman with their eldest daughter. Next slide. So, in summary, here are some of the common features. Even though each story did differ somewhat, some of them, as I said, brought their families with them. Some of them didn't. Fortunately, most of them got reunited eventually. Almost all of them live in areas where there were very few other families. And some of them felt a great privilege because they were living in the Jim Crow South. And they may somehow keep ties with the community of China. Because almost all these families were going to see money back in China for their families. So I think, we have to recognize and remember these courageous people. And nowadays, relative to that, we have a life that's much more commitment. But if you forget the fact that people who came before us made our sacrifices in the European game. So next slide. These were some of the things that they did. Especially with regard to food, health care, health needs, the way they brought the children, the way they disciplined them.
Well, I didn't hear back. I think no, I didn't take it back. Yeah, man, come on. What's wrong with you?
Put together a conference that started to express sentiments that I had proposed when I was thinking about these women when I first wrote some of my writing. I think that these would apply to mothers of all immigrant groups. That is really remarkable how they were able to survive. Thank you very much.
And we look forward to seeing you later this year, September 6th, at the APOC banquet. So mark your calendar, September 6th. Thank you. Have a great